Just joining. Just go spotlight us. Hey, we've got Rob. Welcome, Rob.
Hi, everyone.
Milan again.
Hello.
So we're just giving it a few moments to let people join. But in the chat, if you'd like to, while people are joining, yeah, I'm really interested in your input and your views. So, what are you relying on the most within Gen AI and product development at the moment? Just put a little comment, little sentence, and we'll maybe get to those and make some comments on those a bit later when we have an open discussion. We'll just give it another couple of minutes for others to join. See the list. Welcome everyone who's joining. Hi Chris, Peter, Rob, Steve, Liz. Give it till about 3 or 4 minutes past, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
The Rob. Well, Liz, what are you relying on most with Gen AI and product development? You can kick the ball off, put a comment in.
Don't ask me. My camera's off, so I can have my lunch. Don't ask me intelligent questions at this point in the day. You can see my Christmas hat, though. I've gone all Christmassy.
Right. Struggling here with them not. Okay, so welcome everyone. So I've done a series of actually 4 of these webinars before today, and this is the 5th one. And it's probably what's standing between certainly me and our Christmas party tonight. So yeah, hopefully you'll get value out of this, but feel free to keep the conversations going after this. In this one, we're going to really focus on how AI can help in the software delivery lifecycle, right? How it can help with delivering products to our customers. So feel free, put any questions in the chat throughout, put your hand up. We've got our colleague Tom who's online as well. He'll be monitoring the questions, and between myself and Warren, we'll answer those. I'll introduce Warren in a moment. But first of all, a couple of slides just for those who are new to GW. We're a software delivery company based in Birmingham in the UK, fully employee owned, really focused on driving value for our clients, fast delivery, quality delivery, solving real business problems. And based on this, AI has really helped us recently, but we see a lot of companies who waste a lot of time and budget on technology because they just look at the tools first, see how they can implement it, and wrestle with a lot of constraints. To us, really, this is crucial that when you're adopting new emerging technology, that you look first of all about how it will give you the competitive advantage, how it will solve your business problems. And that's really our kind of approach. And hopefully you'll see some of this as we go through these slides. Like I said, this is the 5th one. I did 3 on my own, and then sort of reached out to a few guests to share some of the load. So in last fortnight's one, I had knitting when we were talking about agents, And today I've got Warren with me. So welcome, Warren.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, so I'm Director of Strategy and Innovation at GW. And Warren, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Head of Product Development here at GW. My role is really in the how we do what we do. I'm an engineer at heart, have been for all of my career, and a big kind of passion of mine within that really is the developer experience. It's the speed of how we deliver. So naturally, you can appreciate how AI and the SDLC is quite a relevant topic for me.
Yeah, now this is an interesting one for me because I probably talk to you every day quite a lot about
Sorry.
AI and product delivery, right? So you're probably getting a bit of insight into our world here. So yeah, again, whether we have to apologise or congratulate us at the end, that could be up to you. So onto the software delivery lifecycle or SDLC. Well, first of all, you know, people have different views of software delivery here. And when we've looked at it, you know, we can have different phases. Some people will do product teams approach, some will do agile delivery, some will be more structured. But I'm really interested in the audience as we go through this. You know, where do you see the most value in our delivery of software for Gen AI? You know, is it around just the build and the putting in place the platforms? Is it in QA? Is it in managing the process? So as I'm going through the next few slides, I'd love you to just type in, you know, the words, the stage of the SDLC where you think the most potential value of Gen AI will be, of co-pilots, of agents, of supporting tools. So rather than go to a poll, because we've got a lot to cover, I'd just like you to have a bit of a think about that and just type the words in the chat where you think the most value will be. It doesn't have to be one of these on here, just single words of where you think the value will be, right? Now, when we talk about SDLC, again, people have different views of it. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to talk about it as this that looks fairly linear, but it certainly isn't at GW. We're very iterative in what we do. You know, the earlier we can spot and discover, you know, missed requirements, we'll do that throughout the cycle. The earlier we can build in the operations side of things to make sure things are scalable, we will as well. But for the purpose of this, like we do in our workshops, we kind of present it in this way, from discovering and coming up with new ideas to actually implementing and improving it throughout. Now, what we're seeing in the industry is that a lot of the use of co-pilots and agents and Gen AI is in the build section of this. Engineers have for many years really kind of explored the chance of writing code or checking code with Gen AI, right? And a lot of the case studies you see, and when we go into new companies, it's probably those engineers who are most au fait with using a coding assistant. You know, that they might have used, well, and you'll know this, the tools you used before Gen AI, you'd go onto the web, you'd look at, you know, where does most code come from before Gen AI?
It'll be Stack Overflow.
Stack Overflow, there we go, you know, and things like that. Now, you know, engineers are using Gen AI and co-pilots before that. Some are embracing it fully. Some are saying, I can write better code than that, and it's coming up with trash, right? But that's where a lot of the discussions were, right? And if we look at industry stats here, we see that, you know, you get so many different analyst stats. You know, developers using AI are 55% faster. This percentage of code is written in with AI generated, and it seems to be going up and up and up, so that the LLMs will be learning on generated code, and that magnifies kind of the impact of it. You know, there was one from GitHub Copilot, who are selling GitHub Copilot, that says developer satisfaction increases by this, right? Now, we think a lot of this is rooted in reality. You know, it is much faster using code assistants. New code will go up in proportion on AI generation. Developers will be much happier if they've got assistants in place. But we think that the biggest productivity gains are in the build phase, but that's only part of the story. And we think that the opportunities are throughout this life cycle. So before we do that, we really wanted to get the terminology right. Software delivery lifecycle is very much focused on almost like the engineering of the code and the products, and that's the illusions of it. We actually worked, we talked to a company recently, me and Tom actually talked to them, and they said, by SDLC, what do you mean? Because there's at least 3 meanings. And to them, it was about service delivery. They were delivering services to their customers. So it was bigger than just the software. We see a lot of people call it solution delivery as well. Now, to us, we've realigned on terms, and we use the term product delivery. Warren's head of product delivery. You know, it's products that we are delivering to our clients that will reap value, that will evolve, that will improve over time. You know, once you've written a line of code and committed it, that's not even the start of the story. The start of the story is when you get it in front of your customers in production, and you can learn from that. And that's something you feel quite strongly about, product.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of the reason for that is that it's something that the whole team have to consider now, is that mindset of let's get it into the hands of users, let's test it, let's validate it, and let's improve it. Whereas before, I think the boundaries between the responsibilities of a team were quite fixed.
Yeah, you see books like Team Topologies that came out that talked a lot about, it wasn't really about agile, you know, and it wasn't about kind of rapid delivery and prototyping. It was bringing all the disciplines together in a team and having a structure where everyone can have a say that will improve that product at the end of the day. So when we're looking at how we use AI in our product delivery, it's very much more than the build phase. And I found a few stats, and I'll put our statement, my statements in blue here, that, you know, on each of the different phases. And I actually believe that AI will have a disproportionate impact, a positive impact early on in the life cycle. That's where any ambiguities, if they stay throughout the life cycle, they are most expensive to kind of solve. The idea is, and we're firm believers of getting the tools into the users early to do prototypes, but the more you can use and iterate around that before you even write a line of code, the closer you are to the vision of what the product would look like, you know, the better chance you have of delivering value to those users. So this is an area where we're, you know, quite strongly committed to bringing out early prototyping, early discovery, early getting it in the hands of the users, and seeing what's missing and what scope and where their focus should be.
Exactly.
We think in design we've always wanted to push the boundaries of what the brief is for a product. We've always wanted to go, what if, and what could you do here, and what if we did that? And you always have to wrestle that with the kind of the budget constraints and the real outcomes that have got to happen fast. So you find very often in design phase, most of the discussions is about, well, what is the MVP of this, not what's the vision for the future. And that's because, you know, in the past, design was quite expensive. It's quite a skilled task to take something where you've got a blank sheet of paper and you're envisaging what it could look like and what the technical implications of that, and what the you know, the implications on the rest of the architecture would be. Well, with Gen AI, surely we can make that easier. Surely we can scale that. We can have more variations of designs to see which one does resonate, to see which one is feasible. And if we're building in elements of that, you know, you can almost say, well, we don't have to define one MVP. We can give many options here, and here are the implications. You can move a lot faster through this. And you'll see some stats here, you know, McKinsey, AI-assisted design reduces rework downstream, and this isn't just rework in the build phase; it's post-go live rework as well, right? In test and QA, this is probably the secondary element where a lot of teams already use AI, right? But for us, what it means is not just faster releases, not just testing can be automated, but it's the confidence elements. We haven't missed anything. We're not going to spend our time post live on solving defects. We're going to focus our time on adding even more value. You know, we went through a major release just this week for one of our clients that's in the call, and we're very proud that through the first few hours, you know, there were no defects reported, so that we could focus on something else. Now, when the defects do come in, again, using Gen AI to identify quickly what the root cause of that is and get it quicker, get it fixed quicker, allows you again to focus on the value.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And deployments. So we've, for a long time, have really focused on trying to almost automate and make the flow of work and the feedback loops of that flow of work as quick as possible, removing the friction and automating it. Now, that is all about looking for gaps, ticking things off early, scaling things quickly, checking things at every single point. So the advantage of the scale that something like Gen AI gives you, you know, and the coverage you can do of that is always going to speed up this deployment process. And really respected analyst Gartner here says that AI-augmented DevOps reduces the cycle time by up to 50%, you know, pretty powerful elements. Now, we think that that's partly done by taking away all of those elements that, to the engineers maybe, and the people who are adding the value, they don't feel as value add, but it's huge value add to the people around it, like the change notes, you know. So we use change sets, so we've got developers writing, you know, what will be in a release, using Gen AI to make consistency of that and roll it out. Removing those extra review points is massive to just getting things, you know, into production.
Yeah, with
and
that as
improve the
well, I
quality.
think, you know, on the changelog side of things, they're quite technical. The
Yeah.
changelogs are, in the sense that there's a lot of product information in there, but also security patches and things like that, and using AI to convert them really into a more stakeholder business facing context is great.
Yeah. Okay. And we've always been proponents of the most important phase of a product delivery is once it's gone live and you're learning from what the users are doing. So, you know, that element of putting the measures in, the metrics, the observability to see, well, what was wrong? Did this meet the goals? And the goal is not just putting a product live. The goal is adding the business value and driving the outcomes you set out to. So the faster you can get at that information of, is it doing that? And more importantly, why is it not? Or why is it, you know, blowing those metrics out the water and doing great? The faster you can get that back into the product teams, the more they can build on the successes and fix maybe some bottlenecks in that process. So, you know, this was a bit of a flavor of generically like how this can help throughout the SDLC. And I'm hoping that you see here that applying AI is not just about a software mindset. Yes, it is, you know, it will help you get cleaner code. It will help you get better architectures and build for scalability and all the other non-functional requirements. But where we think it will really dramatically change the industry is on the product mindset, on how you ensure that there's great adoption. The time to market and the time to value and validation will be dramatically reduced. And the information you're getting about any launch and about usage and about where in the app you can improve things, it will be massive in our view. So, you know, we're firm believers in moving from not just software, but to products, continuous learning loops, outcome centric rather than just requirement centric. Success is not the go live, it's the value you're realizing from that product, you know, and optimize for adaptability, which is a nice one, I think. When you're really just focusing on a SDLC that is about delivering requirements, you're only delivering for what's predictable, what you're expecting, whereas you really want to deliver a product and then adapt it to how the users, you know, want to use that. Okay, so that's a bit about what we've been kind of, you know, generically what our mindset is. So what are we doing now? Well, there's things that we're doing immediately. There's things that we've identified to do next, and there's things that are a bit further into the future. with knowing Warren, the future probably just means April next year or something, right? You know, Warren likes to move fast. So we want to walk you through that, and we've designed a workshop, an AI in the SDLC workshop, that allows us to really identify what's next and what's in the future, you know, and we've done that with a few clients, and we find it really successful. So some of these elements that you're seeing here are out of that workshop. So you know, today we've got a lot. We did an internal study and an internal discussion, and we've done SDLC hackathons, and we've done that workshop, and there was 20 plus items that people were proud of, that they almost wanted to go on LinkedIn and shout about of how we're using AI now. We've just picked out a sample of those today, and maybe it's a chance for Warren to say a few words rather than me talking about some of the key things you like out of these things we're doing.
Yeah, I think, you know, alongside those workshops as well, we do a lot of knowledge sharing, both internally and with our clients, around our experiences with AI, where people are using it differently within the SDLC. I think one of the things that comes out for me as well is how it's really not one size fits all. Everybody's problems are pretty unique, actually, and where AI will have the most impact will differ. Really, there's definitely some low-hanging fruit though that I think we should all be doing. You know, we've got GitHub Copilot embedded on there, for example. I'd like to think that most organisations now that's in place. Really, certainly for us, it's available, and it really is embedded across all of our teams.
And by that, what it's more than just jumping out to Copilot to look at some code. It's really using agent mode to help you to pair with almost. That's what we mean by embedding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's trade-offs and nuance to that as well, in terms of where its values is and where its value is and how it's valuable to different people, in the sense that you know, junior engineers can on board quicker and things like that, and interrogate the code base and learn more. And for senior engineers, they can kind of do two things at once, really,
Yeah.
as I find I do with it. What's really enabled us to adopt it at the level that we have, I think, is our rigorous quality measures, you know, both kind of automated and manual. We talk about one of the stats in there, 30% of code being generated with AI. Without those measures, how much more would there be? I think would probably be my question. So, you know, if you're really going to get the most out of it, it's important to have those measures in place. We've got on there as well, pinpointing critical issues. We had a great story there of a client where there was an erroneous change had happened in some legacy database code, and it had quite a significant impact on their users, and ultimately it was one character wrong in code. And I think because of the nature of PL SQL and the idea and the overall developer experience, it was really hard to catch when it happened, let alone afterwards. You know, it's very much a needle in a haystack situation. Given everything that we knew about the issue at the time, Copilot found it almost immediately, which meant that all of our time was actually spent on the strategic work, the coordination of the release and things like that, as opposed to, you know, a war room trying to find
the change management and the communications about
exactly rather than 20 engineers trying to find a missing bracket. And I think final one for me to talk about here really is the UI component scaffolding. I think there's two sides to that that's really valuable. We mentioned, you know, that kind of holistic experience and of using AI and how it can add value at the design phase. Really, it's about getting actual experiences in the hands of testers, UX, or even users faster. It doesn't have to be a polished experience. It's about getting it out there, measuring it, capturing that feedback, moving faster. And for me, really, that sums up that product versus software mindset. It's the product comes first, and then, okay, this isn't quite ready to fully roll out or ship. We'll go back to our kind of great software principles and enhance on it before we do that. And then there was another interesting story around that, which was, you know, I had one engineer trying to explain a technical challenge to an engineer in Spain, and there was a language barrier. It was really hard to communicate. And what our engineer ended up doing was actually creating a POC of the problem with an actual interface for them to illustrate the I think it was React, the impact that the technology, you know, how it was working, which meant they were no longer communicating in you know, English or Spanish. They were communicating in code and product. Exactly. And it made that far easier. But to spin that up without AI, it would have been a mammoth task.
Yeah. I think the final one on there, the analysis coverage and gaps, it is another similar one, that it's about communication. It's about communication there between the IT teams and the product teams and the end users and the business who are defining the outcomes. You know, for many years in IT, the problems have not been what's in the requirements, it's what's missing from the requirements. And we've got an excellent user experience designer, and she's firm believer on not just trusting what's written down. She loves kind of getting in front of the user, looking at their behavior, looking at the pauses between them using kind of, you know, the app. Why did they take so long to realize that the button was there? Looking at the behaviors and tracing where they go. And she uses Gen AI heavily because we work together on this, on when she's understanding the requirements from the users, using Gen AI to generate the questions, to find the gaps in them. So assuming immediately that the requirements and the asks are incomplete, and trying to find as early as possible the gaps in that by looking at people's behaviors. She'll record the call and analyze it afterwards, and then say, you know, almost the Columbo moment of just one more thing, you know, that can be very Gen AI assisted to find the gaps and the lines of questioning for that. So, yeah. So quite a wide range there across engineering, testing, analysis, architecture, etc. Now, when we've started using those, we want to go further, and we don't want to just look at how can what we're doing today be benefited from Gen AI. So when we designed a workshop to look at what the opportunities were, to almost define what the future product delivery lifecycle would be, or what the future of product engineering would be, we wanted to all start and what's the benefits to the customers. We're building products not just because we love coding, although we do, but for the benefits of the business and the customers. So we did a workshop that was very focused on what is the opportunity to improve the outputs, the products to the customers, and how do we measure success of those? And then tying that back to, is there opportunity for Gen AI to really amplify the benefit, or to really remove the friction so that we can get to the benefits earlier? We've done a few of these, but one particular one that we wanted to share a few ideas of. We did an internal one at GW. We did one with our clients. The one with the clients, there were 9 participants. Now, the interesting thing about that was not 9 engineers. That was really varied, wasn't it? You know, maybe tell us a bit about that.
I'd say across the SDLC and wider, you know, we had the security team in from.
I mean, that's great. Doing a sort of an improvement workshop on how better you can deliver products, and having the security team in there, not seen as blockers at the end, but seen as part of the solution, bringing things up front, was huge for me when I heard they were in the room.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always, you know, in a lot of organisations, definitely not with that client, but you know, the perception that IT are involved too late, and then it becomes more of a defensive position, as opposed to how can we work together to achieve this outcome. Again, really for me, that's that product mindset, as you know, that we all succeed together if this thing works.
So that group, over 60 opportunities, right?
Yeah.
There's a little subtext. 3 were chatbots. I think it means only 3 were chatbots.
Yeah. That's a personal gripe, really. I think with AI in general, you know, it's we've had large language models now for a few years, I would say, in the mainstream sense, and you know, when companies will come out and say about how great their new AI solutions are, and it's a chatbot. And for me, I say that's the least imaginative thing that you can do with AI today.
Yeah. So the future of UI is not just chatbots everywhere, Warren.
No, the future of AI in the SDLC is not just chatbots. It's a lot more than that.
Okay. So when we do this workshop, we look at pain points, we look at opportunities, we'll map them out, we'll score them, we'll look for what is feasible, and jointly we'll come up with opportunities. And that drives out of this workshop and internal ones we've done. There's a few that we're working on now that we're building in. So although we say next, this is current really, I suppose. So, maybe there's a few of these that stick out for you, Warren, and you can share a bit more on.
Yeah, I think straight off, the first one, those custom AI instructions, that's something that we're already seeing across a lot of repositories really that we work on. What's interesting about that, I think, is it should be standard really across all repositories, and then there's other layers to it. It's things like GitHub now supports organizational context, so it's not just about what is in your code, it's actually what are your organizational standards for delivering on certain technologies, what are your principles in how you deliver products.
So by this you mean the context you're applying is not just GitHub Copilot's knowledge of JavaScript or TypeScript or syntax, but it's knowledge about the solution, the repository, but even more than that, knowledge about your standards and your principles. And
exactly, yeah. And it's about making sure that that's available really for anybody working across the organization. Tied in with that as well is that business context integration. So we can kind of speak about defining those standards for Copilot, but then on an individual product basis, actually, there's so much information in other systems that we should make available to Copilot really. A common way of doing that from a kind of tool calling perspective is obviously MCP, integrating tools like Confluence, Jira, Azure, DevOps, bringing all of that, the product requirements, designs into Copilot is going to enhance what it delivers for you ultimately from a product perspective, which is more than code.
So finding a missing bracket, Copilot can do that via its knowledge of JavaScript, but knowing that you're summing up the wrong elements, if it's got access to Jira, to Confluence, to the test suites, it can highlight you. This is fully working, well optimized, clean code, but it's wrong. It's not meeting, it's not fitting in with what the outcomes the business want.
Exactly. Yeah. I think as well, one here for me is this idea of on-demand documentation. Documentation is in a lot of organizations out of date as soon as you write it, pretty much. So being able to actually bring all of these information sources together and just ask questions and get the answers that you need, it's going to transform how we approach documentation, I think, within the SDLC.
Yeah. So it's more targeted as well because of that. It will answer your gaps of knowledge or, what you need to do. You're not just searching through it anymore, right?
Exactly. It's documentation that comes to you at your level. I think a challenge with documentation, take onboarding documentation, for example, is at what level do you assume that the reader, what their knowledge is at? Are they familiar with all the principles of JavaScript or this database technology? And actually being able to bring all of these sources together and have an LLM surface it means that if something doesn't make sense, you can say, oh, well, what does that term mean? Or actually, I don't have that tool set up. How do I get it set up? And you can go deeper, you can go broader. You just can't do that with the documentation.
There's a big trend in the products we're delivering to the customers and to the public for hyper personalization, and we've always been a fan of writing documentation intended for the audience, and we've always had to segment that audience because we're constrained by time and scalability of things. So here's the documentation for the business and for the architects and for the developers and for the testers. Whereas it sounds like what you're talking about, you can get really hyper personalized, know the reader, and give the exact documentation in the language that that reader will consume. Sounds really powerful.
Exactly, and I think it's more than that as well. It's the reader's choice. So it's not a case of let's define what our audience looks like. Okay, so product owners are going to look at this perhaps. Let's assume they're non-technical. Why are we assuming they're non-technical? Actually, they may have technical experience, and they may want to know more than.
Yeah, we know a
your
few
target,
product
if
owners
that
that want
makes
to go and
sense.
look at the code, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's bringing it to them in the way, in as much detail or how they want it, really.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that next is very soon then. So these are the kind of things you're working on at the moment with the team, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm going to 5 more minutes and then we'll open to questions. So Tom, I hope you're kind of, there's a few big questions there. So hopefully you can summarize and do, but that's what's come out of the workshops. But we spend a lot of time talking about what does the long future look like? You know, what's the future of engineers? What's the future of product teams? How will it affect us? How will it affect the world? And we've kind of, between me and Warren, we've kind of documented, or we've distilled this down to a few principles here of what we think will happen in the future. I mean, there's one key overriding theme here, isn't there, that we've talked about quite a lot, you know, and it's about multi-skilling. It's about, you know, the whole team being able to work together on things. So yeah, without stealing thunder.
No, I think coming back to your, you know, talking about the work that we do in UX and design and getting that user feedback, why can't a designer prompt the product and change it and experiment with it in the actual product outside of the tool? That was impossible really a few years ago because of the skills gaps. But now, even just with Copilot and existing code bases, you can do that. There's a lot that you need around it. You know, we got on here about developer experience transformation. I've always believed that new team members should be able to make an impact on day one. And there's a lot that needs to happen to enable that. But if you can enable that, and AI will help you enable that, then those new team members don't have to be software engineers.
Yeah.
Anybody can run that product.
The interesting thing I picked out in your statement, new members can make an impact from day one. Now we hear a lot in the industry of new team members making a commit on day one. That's not necessarily making the impact we're talking about here. And what's been missing is there's definitely 2 steps. There's one, understanding the code base, understanding the technology, which, you know, good engineers can get up to speed with very, very quickly, given that they're not blocked with access and elements like that, which our developer experience tries to make that as frictionless as possible. Yeah. But it's that business context. It's that, yes, I can change that from an N to a Y, because the requirement says that. That's not really adding the value. What you want them from day one is to say, we want to open up this feature to this new segment of the market, and you being able to be advised and helped to say, I know exactly how to do that. I know how to test it. I know how to measure the success of that. So your aim is to get people doing that in day one, right?
Absolutely. And I think as well, AI just makes all of that information so much more accessible. I remember working on my, I think it was first enterprise project probably 7 or 8 years ago, and it was the industry was complex, lots of industry terms, acronyms. I kind of started just picking up tickets essentially, and it took a long time for me to get that domain knowledge. And part of that was not having the it's not even experience, but not wanting to ask too many questions and bother people. Like, what does this acronym mean? And the information wasn't really available out there on the web either, because it's quite a niche industry.
Yeah.
So being able to have tools like this now and be able to get those answers instantly will mean that I'm not just picking up tickets. I'm looking at how I can deliver value for this product.
So a bit related to the last one. Will we be writing code in the future, or will we just be writing prompts for agents to write code for us?
It's a good question. I don't have a strong view on that at the moment. The technology isn't there yet. Will it get there? Maybe, perhaps. It's quite funny because I mentioned last night about the work I was doing with hacking a pendant to pieces. So I've got a recording pendant that Meta have just bought out, and I'm not very happy about that. So I've been.
So you had it at startup phase.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Meta
yeah.
have just bought the company.
Yeah.
So locking down all of your nodes
Yeah.
and using it. And so that's
I mean,
what
it was
you're happy
quite
about,
funny, right? The press release for the acquisition was great news. We've been acquired by Meta. Also, here's this great new feature to delete all your data. Says a lot, right? So, and I kind of got thinking about it last night. I was like, well, this is just Bluetooth. So I was hacking away in React Native, and then I got so far and realised that because of the event bridge, I couldn't. And for what it's worth, I wrote practically no code. I was too tired. I used agent mode for all of this, bar a few changes, and some of it is pretty bad. But I just need it to do the job for me.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where essentially, because of the event bridge, I was blocked by performance issues. So brought up agent mode. Can you just refactor this and move the audio decoding into native code so it's no longer doing it in JavaScript essentially? And I went and made a cup of tea. It took a while. You know, you get the continue to iterate because it thinks it's been on it too long, but it did it. It did it. You know, after a few attempts, and it's just. I couldn't have done that last night. I was way too tired.
Yeah.
So to be able to just sit there and give it instructions
I
and
mean,
develop something that complex, I've never worked with.
I love stories like this.
Like
I love stories. Our colleague Dan does a lot with prototyping with V0. And to me, it's not a question of will be writing code or not. I think where people have got it wrong in the market is that it will all be citizen developers, right? You know, I think some of the most hardcore engineers who like coding the most, the ones who are embracing the abstraction and are prototyping quick and then diving down deep if they need to and to understand what's happening. So it won't be citizen developers or pro coders. It'll be just everyone working together. Be citizen developer helping prototype, then engineers helping make it scale and solving the initial problems and pushing the boundaries of it. So yeah, that's what I think it will be the future. So a few ideas there. If you want to reach out and do more, I'm going to open up to questions. But yeah, that workshop has really helped us. So if anyone's interested in seeing the process we go through, reach out to us afterwards. But Tom, is there any question? I'd have to put my glasses on to view them. But is there any question that stand out?
You keep your bins off, Mark. I'll read them out for you. So with capabilities maturing so quickly, new features and models being released on a weekly cadence, how do the GW team keep up to date with what is currently possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. Is that Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was within the product development team up until July this year, where I've now come out with a specific role for Director of AI and Strategy and Innovation, because we've recognized as a company that although we want to innovate within projects and teams and in product delivery, things are moving so fast. We've got to have an eye on the future, and we've got to have a mechanism for being able to drive that down into the teams, but also allow the teams to generate and innovate themselves. So ultimately, it's my responsibility to do that, and I can only do that by working with Warren in product development. Say, where are the gaps? Where's the ideas? What have you tried? What's stopping you from trying things? So we actually sit on what we call the AI Strategy Council, that is really about that, about not just delivering on the now, but delivering on the now, looking forward to the future, right? So we will have tech radars looking at what the different options are. We're firm believers, that certainly I think us two are, that we don't want to restrict. If we're putting guardrails in place, they're to do the hard things in a standard way to allow people to innovate on top of that. So if we're rolling out kind of agents, we're not saying everyone needs to use Claude or everyone needs to use Copilot agents. We want variations. We want people to feed in and learn. We want people to diverge away from each other when they're innovating and bringing the advantages back together. And it's hard, it is difficult. You need investment, as in just in time and energy, rather than just sort of budgets. So, that's an organization-wide decision to say, are you keeping up, or are you going to be a fast follower that often becomes a slow follower that often becomes a laggard, right? So it's got to start at the top. You've got to think about, if we're going to be in business in whatever we do in the future, whether it's software engineering or, you know, in insurance provision, you've got to have that eye on the future, and you've got to have a mechanism that's not separate from the teams that are working on today. Don't know whether you've got anything to add.
I think the only thing really I've got to add, which doubles down on a point you made, was it's about making sure the teams have the ability to access the tools and the technology in a way that still meets your needs from a governance and security perspective.
Yeah.
So invest in getting those in place, and yeah, let the people run with it, really.
Yeah. I see that there's another question, and it's something that's strong to my heart as well, of local optimization might not improve the overall flow. I think this is a really important point, that whenever we've looked at a process holistically, whether it be a business process and looking at how AI can help, or an engineering process, or a more product delivery one, it's never local optimization that makes the biggest impact. It's a local problem that can be solved upstream, or it's an upstream problem that can be solved by measuring downstream and getting the feedback loop right. So whenever you're looking at this, I implore you to get multiple disciplines, multiple skills together, and look at the holistic process and identify whether a pain point at one point can be solved by a change upstream. You might not even be needing to do that step that your pain point is at, if you can solve it earlier in the business process or the life cycle here. Yeah.
Nice. We are at time. Any more from anybody? Few people knocking around. Phil, anything from you? Obviously, work in a highly regulated environment as a lead architect. Anything? Anything for
vodka
you?
and orange, please.
Well,
It is the
my
time of
final
year.
slide, rather than a Q&A, is I thought I'd used Gen AI earlier, about 5 minutes ago, actually, to generate that. So
Yeah, it don't always work,
rather
mate.
than extending the questions, we don't want to stand between you and your Christmas drinks, I don't think so. Hopefully for Christmas, everyone will get something AI related. A pendant, maybe a bit of open source code from Warren.
I would say, if you do want any kind of in-person meeting transcriber, these pendants are going to be going cheap on eBay. So get them
And
on
then
there.
apply your open source.
Yeah.
So I've put the picture up because I couldn't compete with Warren's shirt as well. I don't know whether you can see the detail of Warren's shirt, but I think it's the best
Get a little close.
Christmas shirt I've seen. Christmas trees all over it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. On those fun notes, Tom, I think we've reached time.
Yes, thank you, Father Christmas, and thank you everyone for joining us. We will be back in 2026 with more webinars. So for now, enjoy the festive break, and we look forward to seeing you all in the new year.
Okay,
Have a good
take
one.
care, everyone. Thanks, Warren.
Thank
Cheers,
you. Have a good
folks.
Christmas.